Asleep. I'm glad you're here. As always, there's one thing I do during the week is I pray for you as we prep for the weekend. I think if you're here this morning, you're here on purpose and you're here for a purpose. And so my prayer is always that at some point in time, you'll be able to discover, God will talk to you, speak to you more about what that purpose is. We're in this series. We've called it Lies Christians Believe. I've said this every week so far. The reason we're doing this series, the reason I think this is a pivotal series, is because our behaviors should stem from our beliefs, right? The things we believe should support the way we behave in life. And the problem with that is if we believe things that are not 100% correct, if they're off just a little bit, sometimes that's not only going to frustrate our behaviors, it's going to lead to the wrong behaviors, it's just going to frustrate how we apply everything in life, especially when it comes to our faith. There's a lot of little things that sometimes as Christians or people who are struggling to discover who God is, we say some things, we hear some things, and not always on purpose. We're not trying to mislead intentionally, but comments come out that they're just not true. Those untrue statements can lead us astray and just create a lot of frustration in our lives, misconceptions, doubts about God. And so we're trying to clean up some of those. If you don't have the book, I told you this series is coming from a book Shane Pruitt wrote, a buddy of ours, called 9 Common Lies Christians Believe. You can get online, go to Amazon, buy the book. I am hearing more and more of you who are reading the book saying, man, this is really fantastic. It is very simply written, and it deals with a lot of things that are just commonplace, things that we'll often say and not even pay attention to how they might be wrong. As we jump in this morning, I'm just curious if anybody will resonate with this today. Did you have a week that was full of any kind of stress, right? Did anybody in here have any kind of like too much busyness, too much to do, too many things on your calendar, and that created a little bit of stress in your life? If you did, I want you to raise your hand if the person who caused that stress is sitting next to you. Go ahead, raise your hand. Oh, see, that's trick. You guys have got to learn with me. Don't stop and listen. Now you're going to have some hard rides home because I saw some hands go up. I was going to ask who had an easy week, but then those who had a really stressful week would just beat you up as you walked out this morning if they found out you had an easy week. There's something that's crazy, I think, that in our culture, all right, and then I'm guilty of this, but there's something that goes on in our culture. When we go and talk to people, we run into each other during the week, we will often ask, how's your week going? How's everything going? How's your day going? And if you ever get beyond the first answer, which is usually just fine, right? There's another answer that I think is one of the top answers we give, and I'm guilty of it, and it's this. I'm just so busy. Like it just seems to be a natural answer. It comes out whether I want it to or not. You ask me how my week's going, I'm going to start to not just say I'm so busy, I'm going to start to recite for you this list of things that I'm doing. As if you need to know everything I'm doing in my week, right? But I'm going to start to unload that list on you. It's the common answer. It's what we do when we meet somebody. And worse than all of that possibly is the fact that in our culture, we actually celebrate that. Like we think about it for a second. We celebrate when somebody says, I'm busy, right? If somebody ever comes up and you say, how's your week? You go, man, it's a pretty easy week. Like things are just smooth sailing. I don't have that much to do. I've spaced everything out just right. I'm enjoying life. What do? You think, come on, be honest, you think internally that person is slacking off. Like they are not in the week, right? They need more to do. They're obviously not productive. That's how we think in our culture. We celebrate busyness. We celebrate frenzied, chaotic activity. We celebrate fast-paced, hustle and bustle lifestyles. I was on Instagram this week and I was looking for some influencers. You know what an influencer is? Somebody who has a lot of followers and they can say things and they can actually get people to pay attention to what they say. So maybe they point out some new clothes you should be buying or some new technology. They're called influencers. And I was on Instagram looking for influencers in this area of life coaching. Listen to some of the statements that I pulled straight from Instagram accounts. One account was all about hustle and heart. That was their word. It's all about hustle and heart. One was said, they're about hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. It's a cute saying, but the bottom line is it's just you got to be super active, right? One made this statement, embrace the hustle, embrace the struggle, chase the dream. Like if you're not doing enough activity, you're not doing enough. One simply said on every slide, hustle and grind, hustle and grind, hustle and grind. We love activity. I'll even prove it. I'll pull up one of the greatest theologians ever, the notorious B.I.G. He's not alive anymore. If you don't know him, go look him up later. Here's what he would say about something like this. He made this statement: I'm living every day like a hustle, another drug to juggle, another day, another struggle. I guess it's honest, right? I mean, I guess he's just being honest, but let's be honest with ourselves. We celebrate chaotic, frenzied activity, excess in our lives, to the point of being overwhelmed. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference between good activities and bad activities. You know this. But let's talk about this for a second. There's a difference between the things that are good in your life, that are good activities that everybody wants to participate in, and the things that get thrust upon you. The things that maybe you didn't sign up for, the things that are going to make you uncomfortable, the things that are going to make you feel even more overwhelmed. You hopefully enjoy your job, right? You hopefully, if you have kids, enjoy taking care of the kids. If you don't, come talk to me later. We'll talk about that. You might enjoy exercise. I don't enjoy it. I do it, right? You hopefully have hobbies that you enjoy. Those are things that you're going to fill your schedule with, right? On the other side, there were things that maybe you didn't want to fill your schedule with. Things that are a little bit harder. Maybe you say they were even bad, but they're activities nonetheless, right? Terminal illness is going to create a list of activities in your life, is it not? Loss of a job is going to create activities in your life. It's going to add stress. It's going to add things to do. Bad marriages is going to create a list of other activities, right? And then you add to all of those things, the good and the bad, you add then the friends and the family members around you, the things that are going on in their lives, and you start to add activities to your life because you're trying to help them as well, right? If we took just a second, we created a list this morning. I said, list out all the things you got to do. You'd probably be overwhelmed already just thinking about them, right? I mean, for me, it invariably during the week, I will get to a point where I will think to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. For the worst of weeks, I'll think, I'm not sure I can do this anymore, right? And then as a follower of Jesus, and here's where I want us to go this morning, because if you're here, you're at least struggling trying to figure out who God is, right? As a follower of Jesus, there's this lie that gets thrown on top of this whole conversation. And this lie makes all of this exponentially worse. Here it is. God wouldn't give me more than I can handle. The lie is God won't give you more than you can handle. I was prepping this week, and I can hear, and this is, probably my sickness, but that statement in my head, I don't know why, because my family doesn't talk this way. I hear it being said like with a little southern drawl accent. Like just somebody saying, honey, God wouldn't give you more than you can handle. Bless your heart. Right? We throw that on because if you're texting, you understand. Bless your heart. Like you're sunk. It's over. Right? Think about it. If for some reason that's how I hear it in my head, and that's a problem. Not the accent. The statement. The belief that God won't give you more than you can handle. Because if I believe God's not going to listen, if I believe God's not going to give me more than I can handle, then I have to actually handle everything that God gives me. If I believe that God's not going to give me more than I can handle, then I've got to handle everything that comes at me all day long. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad, right? You say, Cecil, why do you keep talking about good and bad? Why are you lumping both of those together, right? Like in my life, I have the stress of a sick kid or a boss that I can't control or medical bills. Anybody have medical bills or college bills or repair bills from your car or your house? I've got an absent or addicted spouse. I've got all this other stuff, and you keep lumping good and activities together. Why? Because it's just like you learned in grammar school math, right? Everything adds up. And so the good activities and the bad all come together. It doesn't matter. And they create your day, and they create the stress, and they create that sense of feeling overwhelmed, right? That sense of being burdened, that sense of feeling like you can't just go on. And when you hit that moment, here's what most of us do. Have you ever done this? You go and share with a friend, Like you call them up on the phone, or you go see them, or you schedule coffee, and you just start spilling your heart. Like I'm done. Like I don't know what else to do. Like I'm so worn out. And then here's what we do. And I've done this. Okay, so forgive me if I hope I've never said it to you, but we do this. We say, look, it's going to be all right, right? These things all happen for a reason. You ever heard that one? On a really bad day, or just don't give up. You're going to make it. You can get through it. And then we always wrap up with the lie, God's not going to give you more than you can handle. Wrong. That's wrong. It's not biblical, and it's just wrong. Now, before we jump into this, I want to qualify one thing. This morning's not an exercise on helping you decide what activities you should or shouldn't have in your life, right? We're not going to do that. There's all kinds of tools out there. You can read books on how to find out what should be important in your life and how you strategize and categorize your day, okay? So I'm not doing that this morning. At the core of this lie and what we've been talking about with all these lies, for us, I want to talk about the very nature of God. I want to talk about the character of God and why it goes against this statement. I want you to grab your flyers. We're going to go to the Old Testament first. We're going to look in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah was a prophet from the Old Testament. He was a prophet that prophesied and worked during the times of the kings, when the kings reigned over the nation of Israel. There were good kings and there were bad kings. And if you remember, and if not, I'll try to catch you up, God would use prophets, especially in times when the nation of Israel was not listening to God. So he would send the prophets along, and they were there for correction and for rebuke and to help guide the nation of Israel. And what we get in Isaiah is we get a time when the nation, right, is stopped following God. The nation has kind of turned their back on God's ways. They don't love their neighbors. They're not reaching out. If they do go to the temple, they simply go just to perform the ritual. If you were to think about it in modern terms, it'd be something like this. You just kind of show up at church when you want to. It doesn't really mean anything anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. We don't ever read the Bible. We really don't pray much. We just kind of tip our hat to God. That's what was going on. And God's going to use Isaiah to try to get their attention. And for the first 39 chapters, as we divide them up in the book, there's a heavy, heavy conversation about judgment, about the things that are not right and the things they're doing wrong. And God's using Isaiah to really kind of chastise them. But once the chapters start to turn, we see God and his heart for his people. Not that you don't see it at the beginning, but in spite of everything they've done wrong, in spite of the fact they've turned their back on him, in spite of the fact that they're not going to temple like they should be, they're not worshiping God as they should be, their hearts are not in it, we discover something about God starting in Isaiah 41 that's pivotal. Look at verse 8. This is Isaiah speaking for God. He says, "But you, Israel, my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the offspring of Adam, my friend." You, nation of Israel, you've been messing up. But notice what he says. You're still friend. You whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. In the middle of these warnings, we see the heart of God start to come out through his servant, through his prophet. And we see this picture being painted of a God that is longing for this relationship to be restored. No matter how many times they've rejected him, no matter how many times they've run away from him, no matter how many times the people have turned their backs on God, we get this cry from God, and we get these little indicators that he's longing for something, that he's offering his people something. He says, I want to be with you. In other words, I'm personal, God. I'm not just sitting up high in the sky somewhere. He said, I want to be with you. I want to strengthen you. I want you to be able to trust me. I want you to be able to have some confidence in me. He says, I want to help you. I want you to be able to rely on me. I want to uphold you. I want you to be able to depend on me. He offers to do these things. And listen, by offering to do this, what he's implying, what he's saying, is you need this. You need this. You need me to be with you. You need me to strengthen you. You need me to help you. You need me to uphold you. Look, in spite of all the bad decisions you've made, I'm still coming after you. And you need these things from me. Notice, nowhere in the description, nowhere in those passages are you going to see this. You're not going to see this idea that walking with God is a walk of ease or comfort 24/7. He doesn't promise that. Listen, it's not that he's saying, look, your life's going to be a wreck. Follow God, your life's going to be a wreck. That would be a great commercial. Somebody should put that up, for a church Sunday morning commercial ad. Come follow God. He's going to wreck your life. Like that. Nope. We don't market things that way, right? And he didn't say that. But notice that he also doesn't promise what's not going to be in this life. 24/7 ease and comfort. What he does do is he continues to say, here are the things I know you need. And what you need, I have. I know what you need, and what you need, I have. I have the ability to offer you relationship. I have the ability to offer you strength. I have the ability to offer you help. I have the ability to carry you in the hard moments. So the whole image, the whole picture here is not one of ease of life, but reliability of God. Did you get that? It's not ease of life. It's reliability of God. That God's promises, his person is offered no matter the circumstances. He's always the same. But Cecil, come on. What about if God could just take care of the mess in my life? If he'd just get rid of the stress? You ever feel like just saying that to me? Does anybody not on somebody sometimes go, just come on, you make it sound kind of easy. It's not meant to be easy. He's not Santa. God's not just going to hand out gifts to make life easy. Instead, what does he do? He reveals himself so that we can trust him when life is hard. Right? The gift is not that your life is going to get easy. The gift is that you get to be a part of, be in relationship with, know the master of all circumstances, good and bad, and that you can go on. When we can handle life, we don't think like that. Think about it for just a second. When you can handle life, you don't think like that. It's Memorial Day weekend. And which is more than just barbecue, right? Especially if you come like I do from a family that has military service throughout my family. My daughter sent me a great little text this morning. She went yesterday, she and my son-in-law, because they live in D.C., and she went and took more pictures of the Vietnam Wall Memorial. And she does that. Every time she goes, she finds more names of the men who were with my dad in Vietnam. So it's kind of special in our family to be able to have that interaction. And this week, as I was thinking about this and the hard things that people go through, I remembered a phrase, and you've probably heard this. You ever heard the statement or the phrase, there are no atheists in a foxhole? If you've ever been in the military, if you've ever served, when I hear those stories, that's as close to hell on earth sometimes as I hear. If you serve. Some of you, if you've ever been in a horribly abusive situation, that's about as close to hell on earth as I ever get to listen to when I hear you explain, when I hear your heart bleed over these kinds of things. And I would never want to look at a person who's been in that kind of situation and make light of it. But I do think it's interesting that there's this statement of there are no atheists in foxholes, because I think the implication is exactly what we're talking about. When life gets so hard that you can't handle it, that's all of a sudden when you realize what God can handle. If I can handle life on my own, I don't need God. In a foxhole, when life's falling apart, all of a sudden God's real close. A couple of years ago, I read a survey or a study, and I didn't save it, and to this day I'm kicking myself. I keep trying to find this one article. They did a survey with Americans talking about our need for God. They had a marker. They were looking for something, a tipping point. And so somehow they were talking to families, questioning families, and what they walked away with was this. It's a terrible realization. But about $75,000 is the tipping point. When families begin to earn somewhere in the neighborhood of about $75,000, and this was a couple of years ago, maybe the price has gone up, but when they start to earn about $75,000, that family no longer needs God. You see in a huge trend, people walk away from church, people walk away from praying to God, people walk away from reading their Bibles, people walk away from giving to ministry. About $75,000. Because about $75,000 apparently in most of our culture is the point where we can handle our problems. We can pay for things to get taken care of, right? Like the nation of Israel, we can turn our back on God and we can just do our own thing. We can think to ourselves that we can handle life without God. If God didn't, listen, if He didn't allow you to experience more than you can handle, you wouldn't know in life that you need God to handle life. That's what He's doing. Right? Did anybody pray this week? Anybody get up and say to yourself, hey, it's a really, really light week, God. So whatever extra stress you got laying around, just bring it on. Like I can handle it this week. Did anybody do that? Because if so, we got a special prayer time for you afterwards. We don't do that. I wouldn't expect you to do that. Why? Because when we talk to God and we make plans, we're making plans for comfort. Right? We're making plans for success in life. Nobody ever plans and says, I want to have terrible stress in my life this week. We make plans and we ask God to bless them. And that's not a terrible thing. But you have to understand that we are driven by comfort. We're driven by wanting to handle life on our own. God reveals how He can be trusted in the moments when you can't handle life. God reveals how He can be trusted in those moments when you can't handle life. And even though we pray for comfort, we pray for success, and we pray for things to work out, when He allows things to not work out, He's helping you understand how much you need Him. Right? It's not to say that I want you to leave here and go, okay, Cecil says, starting tomorrow, we're going to pray for stress, we're going to pray for more to do, we're going to pray for too much activity, we're going to pray for busyness. We want to just load ourselves up because that's when God really speaks to us. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. But understand that when it happens, God is speaking. That when those moments where we can't handle life, that's when He can be the closest. Look at Isaiah again. He says, I've chosen you and I haven't cast you off. If I tried to make some kind of a system for you today and say, look, if you'll just follow this system, this will tell you which activities you should and shouldn't do this week. Look, I'd love to help you because I'm that kind of person. I'd love to tell you what to do. All right, I'm good at that. I tell people what to do. Nobody listens at my house, so if you want to listen to me, come to me. I'll tell you what to do. You'll listen. I'll feel better about myself. But that's not going to do you any good. Here's the deal. We're going to all make mistakes this week on choosing activities in our lives. And we're going to learn from them. And hopefully the thing we learn is God is not casting us off. Look what He says. I've chosen you, Israel. I've not cast you off. Now that's a very specific promise, specific thing He said to Israel, but He's going to say the same thing to us. We're going to run over to Paul in just a second, and you're going to find out God wants relationship. And He wants to be involved even in those moments when we mess it up. And He's going to let some of this craziness into your life. He's going to let you experience more than you can handle so that you know you need to handle life with Him. And by the way, we're still the ones that set this place up. We're still the ones that in the garden and today continue to tell God, I'd rather worship the creation than you. So we still are the ones who continually make the mess, blame him for the mess, blame God for all the craziness in our lives. But look what he says. Let's finish it again. Verse 10, fear not, I'm with you. Be not dismayed, for I'm your God. I will strengthen you. He doesn't say I'm going to give you the victory every day. I'm going to make everything work out fine. He goes, I'm going to strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Again, this was said to the nation of Israel, but the principle is that God is there in the moments when you can't handle it. In spite of the fact that we often created the mess, God reveals how he can be trusted in the moments when you can't handle life. He reveals how he can be trusted. I want to run real quickly over to 2 Corinthians, because I think this is one of the best illustrations of this whole principle. Paul is going to start talking. He uses himself a lot in his illustrations. And when Paul's addressing the Corinthian church, by the way, Corinthian church was one of the most unhealthy churches that I've ever seen. There's crazy things that are going on in the Corinthian church. And when he's writing here, some people have come in, some false teachers, and they're boasting about all these things supposedly they've done with God, but they're lying. They're trying to gain notoriety. They're trying to gain popularity. They're trying to work their way into the people of God, and they're misleading people. And Paul's livid. And he starts to boast about himself, which he is at odds with. But he says, if you want somebody to boast, let me boast about all the things God has done with me. And he just starts listing these crazy things, including this time that he in his spirit gets to see this part of heaven that nobody's ever seen. Paul says, I've just had unbelievable things that God has done in my life. If you want somebody to boast, let me boast. And then he quickly moves the conversation. He goes, but hold on just a second. Because despite all these things that God has done with me, and despite all this stuff I've got to boast about, let me tell you what else God is doing in my life. Verse 7, 2 Corinthians 12. So to keep me from becoming conceited, because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, because of everything God has shown me, to keep me from becoming conceited, because I really have seen more than you people. Like, I'm confident of this. So whatever you think you know, I'm laughing at you. You follow me? This is how he's thinking. He says, because I'm going to get conceited, a thorn was given me in the flesh. We don't know what it was. You can speculate all day long. You're still not going to know. Please don't come up and tell me you've discovered the thorn. I've read and read and read. I'm not 100% sure, but something happened to him that was very real in his flesh. A messenger of Satan to harass me. So maybe it was something very physical, very tangible, to keep me from becoming conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this. Now, right about here, okay, in my notes, in my Bible, I put a little asterisk because I'm going 3 times. Seriously, Paul? Like I can way outdo you on this one. Like something bad happens in my life, and you know what I do? Hey God, hey God, 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 hey God, 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 hey God. And I can be just like your 3-year-old who's trying to get your attention. I can be tugging on his arm. I can be like taking his face going, hey God, hey God, hey God. You ever had a kid do that to you? Like, you need to listen to me. Paul prays 3 times. I'm like, amateur. I bet I could do 300 easy in 2 days. Look what he says. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is, say it, what does he say? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Can I tell you something? There's no Instagram account for that one. Nobody's marketing that this week, except Christians maybe. But my grace is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. He says, you know what? I've discovered that the times I can't handle life is when God handles things for me. I learn to trust in who he is. I learn to rely on him. I learn to have confidence in him. So I'm going to stop acting like I'm supposed to have it all together. I'm going to stop boasting that I'm a great public speaker, because we all know that I'm not. I'm going to stop boasting that I can preach better than anybody else. I'm going to stop boasting that my life is better than everybody else, because in the times that I absolutely screw it up, God's power comes out in me. Verse 10. For the sake of Christ, then, I am, what's he say? Content with weaknesses. Watch this. This is going to get real tough. I am content with weaknesses, with insults, with hardships, with persecutions and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. The moments when we can't handle life are the moments when God's power is made manifest in our lives, right? It's not what we expected. It's not always going to turn out the way we want it to. It's not always going to be easy. Sometimes it's going to be really painful. Sometimes it's going to be insulting. And listen, sometimes some of us, we're going to carry marks somewhere in us for the rest of our lives. We're going to carry scars. We're going to carry the pain. We're going to carry things that have hurt us. And that's going to become a part of our story. But it's in those moments where the power of Christ is made real to us, because if we didn't have more than we could handle, we wouldn't need God to begin with. And God reveals how he can be trusted in the moments when you can't handle life. I put a question in the middle page at the very bottom. Here's the question. It says, are you willing to trust God in spite of the moments that stretch you beyond what you think you can handle? Now that's a simple yes or no question. So we're going to do something for the next few minutes. We're going to put the brakes on. It's a holiday weekend, okay? Relax. You're not going to work tomorrow. Most of you aren't. I hope you're going to have a barbecue and enjoy the weekend. But let's put the brakes on for just a second. And let me ask you a few questions. What is it that is stressing you out? Now, if you need to close your eyes to listen to these, if you need to get away for just a second, but I don't want you looking at your neighbor, talking to your spouse. Nobody squeeze anybody's hands when I read the right question, because you're trying to help, your person next to you hear God better. What is it that stresses you out? What's in your life that you feel like you're just at the end of your rope and you're just saying, I can't handle this anymore? What is it that has made you feel like you've been stretched beyond your ability to even get out of bed sometimes? What do you keep begging God to remove? What do you keep begging God to do different in your life? Is God inviting you to trust him this morning with that thing? Here's another one. Is God inviting you for the first time maybe to trust him in a way that you've never trusted him before? Maybe somebody is sitting here, you're thinking, I've just never even trusted him to that degree at all before. I just said, I love God, but I go to church and I do my own thing, right? Are you willing to take that step? I want to invite you to sit for the next few minutes. The band's going to kind of play, and when we're done, they'll start singing. And at that time, if you want to stand up and sing, you can sing. But stay seated for a second, and we're going to put the words of that passage from 2 Corinthians on the screen, but we're going to put it from the Message. So some of the words are going to be really, really different. They're going to be kind of modern. But I did this because I want you to sit and think for just a second. I want you to ask God, what is it that he needs you to trust him with? What is it he wants you to turn loose of? What is it that's just wrecking your world that you keep hitting this spot and you keep thinking, I can't trust you, God? And he's saying, no, it's the exact opposite. That in the middle of all this stuff you can't handle, you can learn more about him. You can understand more about what he wants to do in your life. You can rely on him more. What would he say to you this morning for the next few minutes? Look at the screen.